In late December 1924, Floyd Collins discovered a hidden cave that promised fame and fortune. But what began as a monumental discovery quickly turned into a horrifying struggle for survival. Trapped deep underground, freezing and starving, Floyd's desperate situation captivated the nation. Thousands flocked to the cave's mouth, hoping against hope for his rescue. The saga even caught the attention of the president. But in the middle of all the chaos and media frenzy, could anyone save Floyd Collins before it was too late? Join us as we unravel a tale of courage, tragedy, and the enduring legacy of one man's quest for greatness. William Floyd Collins was born on July 20th, 1887, on a farm near Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. His mother Martha died from tuberculosis in 1915, and his older brother James passed away from typhoid fever in 1922. Floyd grew up with siblings Homer, Nellie, Marshall, Anna, and Andy. From a young age, Floyd explored caves near his home, looking for artifacts to sell to tourists. His first discovery was Donkey's Cave on the family farm in 1910. He later helped find other caves with geologist Edmund Turner, like Dossie's Dome Cave and Great Onyx Cave. But how did such an experienced cave explorer find himself in such a dangerous and desperate situation? In 1917, while exploring his farm, Floyd felt cool air from a hole in the ground. He dug further and found a passage blocked by debris. By December of that year, he uncovered the entrance to what he named Great Crystal Cave. His father, Lee Collins, gave him half ownership, and they opened it to tourists in April 1918. Cave tourism was a big business then, with fierce competition among cave owners known as the Cave Wars. Floyd's Great Crystal Cave struggled due to its remote location along Flint Ridge Road. Despite efforts to attract tourists, few made the trek. So in 1925, Collins embarked on a daring venture near Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. He wanted to discover a new cave or another entrance to the famous Mammoth Cave to attract more tourists and boost profits. Partnering with local farmers, Collins explored a hole that would later be known as Sand Cave in the media. On January 30th, 1925, tragedy struck Floyd Collins as he explored a cave. He crawled through muddy pools of snowmelt that numbed his fingers and soaked his clothes. Descending into the cave, he extended his kerosene lamp, lighting the way as the last beams of sunlight disappeared. The cave narrowed into a tight shaft of jagged rocks, but Floyd was determined. He belly crawled through the cramped space, facing the first real squeeze at 50 feet. With practiced technique, he wriggled through, pressing his arms to his sides and exhaling deeply to flatten his chest. After navigating more squeezes, he reached a sloping pit just wide enough for his body. The pit dropped 10 feet into a small cubbyhole, ending at a tight crack, described by his brother Homer as a chimney no bigger than your own body, lined with rocks that dig into your flesh and tear your clothing. Floyd had spent days clearing rocks from this spot, and now it looked passable. Carefully, he eased down feet first, threading his body through the tight enclosure, rocks pressing painfully against him. The crack led to a ledge, and Floyd's lamp revealed a large room that dropped about 60 feet. Excited to explore, he tied a rope around a boulder and descended. However, his lantern began to flicker and dim, forcing him to turn back. Climbing back, he carefully edged toward the horizontal crack. Laying down, he flipped onto his back and pushed the lantern ahead. Suddenly, everything went black. He had knocked over his lantern. Despite the terrifying situation, Floyd didn't panic. He wriggled toward the bottom of the pit, but a rock crumbled behind him, pinning his left ankle. Floyd tried to move but was trapped, the cave a stony cocoon. His left arm was pinned under his torso, his right by the rock ceiling above. Every struggle caused more rocks to tumble, digging into his skin. Desperately, he clawed at the cave walls until his fingernails bled. Exhausted, he fell into a tormenting routine of sleep, wake, and scream. Minutes turned to hours. His voice disappeared, his arms went numb, and pain radiated from his ankle. For the next 25 hours, Floyd received only one visitor from the world above, trickling beads of snowmelt, dripping methodically onto his face, drop by drop. On Saturday afternoon, Floyd heard someone calling his name. "Come to me," he replied, waking up from his daze. "I'm hung up." It wasn't until then that people realized he was trapped. The first to brave Sand Cave was 17-year-old Jewel Estes. Despite his agility, Jewel had little experience underground. He froze at a tight squeeze and called out to Floyd, who yelped in response. Jewel quickly scrambled back to the surface. One by one, men tried to reach Floyd, but each emerged covered in mud, vowing never to enter that dreaded hole again. By mid-afternoon, dozens of locals from Cave City had gathered outside. None could reach the trapped man. "I wouldn't go back in there for a cold 1,000, bad as I need money," said one rescuer, Ellis Jones, trembling. Unlike most safe Kentucky caves, Sand Cave was dangerous. A mix of sandstone and limestone blocks held together by mud. Its loose, crumbling ceiling terrified anyone who dared enter. At 4 p.m., Floyd's 22-year-old brother, Homer, arrived from Louisville and saw dozens of men arguing outside Sand Cave. Ignoring them, he entered the cave still wearing his city clothes. The smell of cigarettes and alcohol lingered inside. Homer stripped down to his underwear to navigate the narrow space. The sight of the cave made Homer shudder. Homer faced an immediate problem that frustrated every rescuer. Entering head first meant working upside down and pushing oneself feet first up a sharp slant upon leaving. Entering feet first, as Homer did, made it nearly impossible to reach Floyd's level. Floyd's position made rescue nearly impossible. Pinned from the chest down, his hands and feet were out of view. Homer fed Floyd by hand, giving him a pint of coffee and 9 sausage sandwiches. He tried to remove the loose rocks around Floyd, but new ones always fell in their place. Hours later, Homer emerged, shivering violently, with skin hanging from his fingers. Dozens more men tried to navigate Sand Cave, but all failed. No one reached Floyd until Homer went back in at midnight. For about 8 hours, Homer used a crowbar to hack at the rocks trapping his brother. The cave did not yield. By sunrise, Homer's arms and back ached, his lungs burned, and his mind despaired. When he finally emerged into the dawn sunlight on February 1st, he saw a crowd of unfamiliar faces. Outside Sand Cave, chaos reigned as everyone debated rescue ideas. They argued about using TNT, gas torches, and even amputation. Around 100 men stood outside, drinking and arguing, unable to act. Floyd, trapped below, couldn't understand why no one was doing anything. "Why does everybody just stay up there and talk?" he reportedly asked in frustration. Homer, deeply disappointed, had asked local boys to bring food and blankets to Floyd, but the items were shamefully stuffed into cracks in the cavern walls. Many claimed progress. Floyd is in good spirits. He's wrapped in his new blanket. But these were lies. Except for Homer, no one reached Floyd on February 1st. That night, a young reporter named William B. Miller, known as Skeets, arrived. Homer dismissed him, but Skeets accepted the challenge. He squeezed through Sand Cave's tight spaces and made it to Floyd, who was too weak to respond coherently. Miller's effort gave him a deep understanding of Floyd's bravery and the rescue's difficulty. Seeing Miller's exhausted state renewed Homer's hope. Maybe this reporter could be of help after all. By Monday, February 2nd, Floyd Collins was in a bad way. He was hallucinating, wrapped in white linens, and imagining angels and delicious food, which were only illusions created by his worsening condition. That day, Lieutenant Robert Burden, a 33-year-old firefighter from Louisville, arrived. Unlike others before him, Burden managed to get close to Floyd. Astonished by the situation, he said, "We've got a hell of a problem here, but I think we can get you out with a rope." Floyd agreed, despite knowing it might be painful. Burden warned that they might have to pull Floyd's foot off, but Floyd insisted, "Pull my foot off, but get me out." Burden returned to the surface and informed the crowd that Floyd had agreed to the rope pull. This sparked a heated debate. Some worried it would break Floyd's foot or cause severe injuries. A doctor even suggested it could stretch his organs. But Burden, convinced it was the only option, pressed on. By 5 p.m., at hour 79, a special harness was brought to the cave. Homer, Skeets, Miller, and Burden prepared to descend with a 100-foot rope. Homer went first, bringing Floyd food and whiskey to calm him. Floyd admitted he didn't want to lose his foot. Homer gave him a sedative to help him endure the potential shock. With the harness in place and the rope secured, everyone braced themselves. On Homer's count, the rescue attempt began. The attempt was heartbreaking. As the team pulled on the rope, trying to free him from the rubble, Floyd screamed in agony. Burden urged the men to pull harder. Miller yanked the rope, causing more pain. Floyd's body, trapped in a twisted position with rocks pinning his lower half, was contorted unnaturally. Sand Cave echoed with his desperate cries. "Don't do it! Don't do it! Don't do it!" Floyd begged. Homer, unable to bear his brother's suffering, pulled in the opposite direction and managed to stop the men from pulling. The rope, along with Floyd's limp body, lay on the cave floor. the team made no progress. Shaken by the situation, the rescuers decided to leave and reassess their plan. Burden fainted as he crawled out, and most men had to be carried away, too exhausted and traumatized to walk. Outside, a growing crowd of 200 people murmured anxiously. Among them was Johnny Gerald, Floyd's childhood friend, and possibly his last hope. When Johnny first heard about Floyd's situation, he didn't think much of it. He believed Floyd, a skilled caver, could escape on his own. But after 2 days, a sense of dread brought him to Sand Cave. The chaotic scene, with drunken crowds and inexperienced rescuers, disgusted him. He was especially shocked by Burden's plan to yank Floyd out with a rope. Johnny, experienced in cave rescues, slipped into the cave, finding it littered with bottles and clothes. When Floyd heard Johnny's voice, he shouted with joy, "Let him down here! He'll get me out!" Johnny struggled through tight spaces, but eventually reached Floyd. He spent hours removing rocks, slowly freeing Floyd's torso, hips, and upper thigh. For the first time, Floyd could wiggle his right leg, though it was painful. Before leaving, Floyd told Johnny not to let anyone else come down, fearing more harm from inexperienced rescuers. Johnny promised to honor his wish, turning away a team of professional stonecutters who had a plan to chisel away the limestone. As Johnny rested, the crowd kept vigil. Burden returned with his rope-pulling scheme, but the crowd, now loyal to Johnny, shouted him down. Burden, though brash, was a capable rescuer. Without him, the rescue effort lacked direction. Exhausted, Homer and Johnny couldn't lead, and Skeets Miller, the reporter, had stories to file. Meanwhile, Floyd lay alone in the dark cave. As the nation read about his plight, thanks to Miller's reports, Floyd's story gripped America. From coast to coast, people anxiously followed his struggle. In Washington, President Coolidge and his Secretary of Commerce, Herbert Hoover, kept informed. Despite the growing national attention, the rescue effort was in disarray. On Tuesday morning, February 3rd, Floyd Collins waited in darkness, surrounded by rocks, holding on to hope that he would be saved. Miller, sweating and trembling, stared at the stubborn rock blocking Floyd Collins. Every move he made seemed to make things worse. The stone shifted slightly, but then settled back into place. Miller's body was overwhelmed with pain and exhaustion, and his efforts seemed futile. Despite Floyd's encouraging words, "You can do it, fella," Miller felt the weight of his failure. Around 1 a.m., utterly spent, Miller collapsed. The rock had not budged, and everyone around felt like giving up. Burden described it as a moment of sheer despair. Before leaving, Miller adjusted Floyd's covers and put a light bulb around his neck for warmth. Emerging from the cave with bruised hands, he saw the National Guard had arrived, adding a glimmer of hope to the situation. The Courier-Journal praised Skeets Miller for his bravery, but a new leader emerged, Henry Carmichael from the Kentucky Rock Asphalt Company. Shocked by the chaotic rescue efforts, he took charge. His team assessed the cave's worsening stability. Volunteer Casey Jones ventured inside, but fear overwhelmed him as the cave seemed to close in. Though Floyd was desperate for companionship, Jones had to leave. On Wednesday morning, Miller returned with an acetylene torch, planning to clear the rocks. However, the cave had worsened. His attempts to move the stones caused more to tumble, and his bleeding nose was a grim sign of the danger. Concerned for Miller and Homer Collins, Burden urged them not to return. Johnny Gerald, furious about the collapse he had predicted, took over. He led a small crew to shore up the cave, moving rocks and reinforcing the structure. Gerald, motivated by Floyd's cries, saw daylight pierce the cave and reassured everyone that Floyd would soon be free. At 10:30 p.m. on February 4th, Gerald made his final descent. He hoped to feed Floyd and use Vaseline to help remove the rocks. But as he neared Floyd, he found the ceiling had collapsed again, blocking the light. Desperate, Gerald called out to Floyd, only to be hit by a falling rock. Despite the pain, he continued clawing at the stones. A heavy rock forced him to retreat, and he declared, "I would not go back in that derned place if they deed me the state of Kentucky." The next day, Lieutenant General H.H. Denhart took control, deciding to drill directly down to Floyd. Henry Carmichael led the effort, assembling miners, engineers, and volunteers. However, the locals, feeling excluded and skeptical, resented the plan. Heavy machinery couldn't be used due to dangerous fumes, so they resorted to digging a 55-foot shaft with picks and shovels. Progress was slow, reaching only 17 feet by the end of the day. Complications arose as melted groundwater softened the walls. Tension grew among the rescue team and locals. Gerald, angered by a decision to blast warm air into the cave, was banned from the site, inflaming local resentment. Media coverage exploded, drawing thousands to Cave City. The scene turned into a bizarre carnival, with vendors and con artists mingling among the crowd. Despite relentless rain, the rescue continued. The shaft reached 25 feet by Sunday evening, but progress was slow. Volunteers, including students and members of the Brotherhood of Hobos, joined the effort. Despite some believing Floyd might still be alive, progress remained sluggish, and the shaft walls, weakened by rain, threatened to collapse. Carmichael paused the dig to secure the walls. By Wednesday, February 11th, snow flurries hardened the mud, which later softened again with rising temperatures. The shaft reached 44 feet. Above ground, new dramas unfolded. On Carnival Sunday, Lee Collins was seen begging for donations, fueling conspiracy theories. Some claimed the entire situation was a hoax, while others accused the Collins family of delaying the rescue for publicity. A military court of inquiry was convened, revealing a lack of trust and coordination among rescuers. By Valentine's Day, the court concluded no foul play had occurred. The shaft reached 55 feet, and workers began digging sideways into Sand Cave. Despite 17 days without food, water, or heat, rescuers hoped Collins was still alive. Encouragement poured in, including donations and letters. At 1:30 p.m. on Monday, February 16th, a chisel broke through to Sand Cave. Rescuers eagerly widened the hole and sent Ed Brenner inside. He confirmed the worst. Floyd Collins was dead, likely for 3 days. The decision was made to leave Collins's body entombed in the cave, as the shaft walls were too unstable. On February 17th, the Collins family bid farewell, and Cave City soon emptied. Contrary to rumors, the family returned to farm life without newfound wealth. B. Doyle, the cave owner, charged visitors 50 cents to peer into the hole that swallowed a man once known to many. William Skeets Miller returned to reporting and won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage. Homer Collins toured vaudeville stages to fund his brother's retrieval. On April 17th, Floyd Collins's body was finally recovered and buried in the family cemetery, a stalagmite headstone marking his plot. In 1977, Roger Brucker entered Sand Cave and found remnants of Floyd's tragic story. The entrance is now sealed. Professional cavers still explore the mammoth system, often finding traces of Floyd's early explorations. They believe Sand Cave is geologically connected, but after 1925, no one is eager to search for the link. Floyd Collins, the fearless explorer, is gone, leaving a legacy carved into the rocks. How do you think advances in technology today might have changed the outcome of Floyd Collins' rescue? Leave your answers in the comments section below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys soon.